The lights on the police car flashed red and blue, cutting through the summer haze in Willow Creek. Sergeant Caleb Marshall sat quiet in his beat-up Dodge Ram, hands solid on the wheel, as Officer Carter yelled, "Get out of the truck now." The people around Parker's Grill whispered, phones in hand, and some laughed at the young guy in a t-shirt who seemed like he had pushed his luck too far. No one saw the little tombguard badge shining on his wallet. No one realized that a convoy from Fort Meyer would be roaring into town in just a few minutes, commanded by a captain who would salute Caleb like a hero. No one could have suspected that this peaceful man standing next to his truck was a tombguard, one of the best in the army, who had sworn to honor the dead and teach them all a lesson they would never forget. Before I tell you what happens next, please subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments section from where you are watching. If you still think that ideals like honor, courage, and sacrifice are important, please help us preserve their memory alive. The sun was low in the sky above the small community of Willow Creek, which is only a few miles from Arlington National Cemetery. It was a hot summer afternoon, and the air shimmered above the pavement. The smell of mowed grass came in through open windows. A 32-year-old tombguard named Sergeant Caleb Marshall was driving his 2010 Dodge Ram pickup down Main Street. He had just finished his shift at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier and was on his way home in his civilian clothes, which were a plain black t-shirt and pants. He had a small tombguard badge pinned to his wallet and tucked it into his pocket. That was the sole sign that he had served. Caleb stopped at a red light at Parker's Grill, a diner where the fragrance of coffee and burgers constantly hung in the air. He looked at the clock on the dashboard and saw that it was 4:45 p.m. As he drummed his fingers on the steering wheel, blue and red lights flashed in the mirror behind him. A police car came up behind him. Caleb's jaw tensed, but he stayed calm because he had been in the military for years. He stopped on the side of the road, and the gravel crunched under his tires. Officer Emily Carter, who was 29 years old, got out of the cruiser. She had a tight ponytail on her hair, and her mirrored sunglasses made the fading light look even better. Her boots made a clicking sound as she walked with intent. Officer Michael Hayes, 34, her partner, walked a step behind her with his hand resting casually on his belt. Emily leaned toward the window that Caleb had opened. "Hey there, sir. You were going a bit too fast back there. Please show me your license and registration." Caleb looked her in the eye and spoke in a calm, even voice. "I was going the speed limit, officer, but here you go." He took out his wallet, pulled out his driver's license and registration, and gave them to the officer. Emily accepted the papers and squinted at his driver's license. "Caleb Marshall, huh? This truck looks like it's seen better days. Are you sure it's safe to drive?" Caleb's lips pushed together, but he didn't take the bait. "It's well kept, officer. It passes inspection every year." Emily arched an eyebrow and looked through the registration. "Uh-huh. Please get out of the car so we can take a closer look." Michael came forward and spoke in a lower voice. "Just a routine check, man. It won't take long." Caleb unbuckled his seatbelt and got out, making a faint thump with his boots on the ground. He stood tall, and his posture was straight from years of marching at the grave. Emily walked around the truck, looking for anything that seemed out of place. Michael stayed close to Caleb and looked at the gathering that was getting bigger across the street from Parker's Grill. A few people from the area had started to assemble, and some were taking videos with their phones. Emily knocked on the back of the truck with her knuckles. "This thing's rusty. Are you sure it's not dangerous? What do you do for a living, mister? Marshall driving around in this old pile doesn't exactly scream steady income." Caleb's brows narrowed a little, but his voice stayed calm. "Officer, I serve in the Army at Fort Meyer." Emily smirked and gave him his license back. "Army, huh? What, like a desk job? You don't look like you're in uniform." "I'm off duty," Caleb stated simply, with his hands in front of him. Michael looked at Emily and saw that her tone was getting sharper. "Come on, Em. Let's finish this. The guy has his papers in order." Emily didn't listen and moved closer to Caleb. "You were weaving a little back there. You've been drinking, or maybe you're just not paying attention. Either way, I'm not sure you should be driving this thing." Caleb's jaw tensed, but he stayed calm. "Officer, I haven't been drinking. I was driving straight. If you have a ticket, write it up. If not, I'd like to get home." Emily was angry at how calm he was. "Don't be smart with me, sir. Come over here and put your hands on the truck. We're going to do a quick pat-down." Caleb's gaze went to the gathering, which was now around a dozen people. He could hear others whispering, some of them sympathetic, and some of them judging. "Poor guy, just trying to get home. Why are they bothering him? That old truck looks like it's up to no good." He took a big breath and put his hands on the truck so Emily could pat him down. When she felt his wallet, her hands stopped, and she pulled it out to look at it. She held out the small silver badge with the tombguard symbol, a wreath, and crossed weapons and asked, "What's this?" Caleb's voice was low yet forceful. "Some kind of souvenir." "It's not a souvenir, it's my badge." Emily snorted and threw the wallet back to him. "Okay, stay here, we're going to run your information." She went back to the cruiser, leaving Michael to watch Caleb. Michael moved around in an uncomfortable way. "Sorry about this, man. Just doing our job. You know how it is." Caleb nodded a little, his eyes on the horizon. "I understand, duty officer." Linda Parker, a 60-year-old woman with silver hair and a friendly grin, watched from behind the counter at Parker's Grill across the street. She had known Caleb for a long time, ever since he started coming over for coffee after his shifts at the tomb. She knew how he stood, how strong he was, and the badge he always wore. Linda's heart fell when she watched Emily standing up for herself and the throng getting bigger. She mumbled, "That's not right," as she wiped her hands on her apron. She picked up the phone and called Fort Meyer, her voice full of urgency. "Linda Parker from Parker's Grill here. I need to talk to someone in charge. The cops are bothering one of your tomb guards out here. His name is Caleb Marshall, and you need to send someone right away." Emily came back from the cruiser and walked back to the street. Her face was tougher than before. "Okay, Mr. Marshall. Your record is clean, but I'm not sure you're fit to drive. You're coming with us to the station for a sobriety test." Caleb's voice was still calm, but there was steel in it now. "On what grounds, officer?" "I've done everything you've asked. I haven't broken any laws," Emily said as she walked closer and rested her palm on her holster. "Don't make this harder than it has to be. Get in the cruiser, or we'll have to use force," Michael said, putting a hand on her arm. "And maybe we should." She pushed him away. "No, Mike, he's not being helpful. That's enough for me." The crowd's whispers got louder. A young woman in the group shook her head while holding her phone. "This is crazy. He didn't do anything." An older man nearby said, "Typical cops, picking on some poor guy for no reason." Caleb kept his position and spoke calmly. "I'm not going anywhere, officer. If you have a charge, say it. If not, I'm leaving." Emily's cheeks turned red with anger. "You're under arrest for getting in the way of an officer. Turn around and put your hands behind your back." Before Caleb could say anything, the sound of motors started up. Two military Humvees turned the corner, and their tires kicked up dust as they parked in a straight line. 8 soldiers got out, their clothes neat and their moves exact. Captain Laura Bennett, who was 45 years old, was in charge of them. Her blonde hair was tucked under her cap, and her eyes were sharp and dominating. She walked right by Emily and Michael, and stopped 3 feet from Caleb. She said, "Sergeant Marshall," and gave him a sharp salute. "We were told about a situation. Are you okay?" Caleb returned the salute without changing his face. "Everything's fine, Captain. It was just a mistake." Emily's jaw dropped open, and her sunglasses fell off her nose. Michael stepped back, his eyes wide open. The audience stopped talking, but their phones were still recording, this time with a sense of wonder. Captain Bennett looked at Emily and spoke in a cold voice. "Who's in charge here?" Emily gulped hard and tried to calm down. "Officer Emily Carter of the Willow Creek Police Department. We stopped this man for a routine check, but he didn't want to cooperate." Bennett's eyes furrowed. "Sergeant Caleb Marshall is a tomb guard with the 3rd Infantry Regiment. He is one of the most disciplined soldiers in the United States Army and is responsible for guarding the tomb of the unknown soldier. You thought it was okay to threaten him with arrest." Emily's face became pale. "I didn't know he was." Bennett stopped her. "You didn't ask. You saw a man in a beat-up truck and thought he was a problem. Do you have any idea what it takes to earn this?" She pointed to the tomb guard badge that Caleb now held. 9 months of training, perfect discipline, and complete dedication. Sergeant Marshall has promised to honor the dead, and you have broken that promise." Michael moved forward, his voice wavering. "Ma'am, we were just doing our job. We didn't mean to be rude." Bennett's look softened a little, but her voice stayed strong. "Your job is to protect and serve, not to bother a soldier who has done more for this country than most." The crowd's tone changed. The young woman on the phone said, "That's a tomb guard." "Wow," the elder man said in a rough voice. "Should have known. That guy has that look," Caleb finally said, his voice calm but strong. Bennett said, "Captain, I don't want any trouble. I just want to go home." "Understood, Sergeant, but this needs to be dealt with." She turned back to Emily. "Officer Carter, you owe this man an apology." Emily hesitated, torn between her pride and her shame. She took a big breath, took off her sunglasses, and looked Caleb in the eye. "Sergeant Marshall, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have thought you were someone else. Caleb nodded, and his face relaxed. Apology accepted, officer. But next time ask questions before you make judgments. You never know who you're dealing with. Michael scratched the back of his neck, seeming embarrassed. Man, I've seen videos of the tombguards. You guys are unreal. I'm sorry too. Caleb nodded slightly. Don't worry about it. You're just doing your job. Linda Parker, who was watching from the diner, went outside with her apron on. She clapped her hands, and her voice could be heard across the street. Okay, everyone, the show is over. Get some coffee and let these people figure things out. The crowd started to leave, but some were still shooting. The tension had broken. Bennett looked at Caleb. Sergeant, do you need someone to help you? Caleb shook his head. I'm fine, Captain. Thanks for coming, Bennett said with a grin and a rare warmth in her eyes. Sergeant, we'll always have your back. Always. The troops moved aside to make a path of respect for Caleb as he walked back to his truck. He got in, started the engine, and drove away, the thunder of the Dodge Ram fading into the distance. Caleb was sitting in a corner booth at Parker's Grill an hour later, with a cup of black coffee in front of him. Linda had told him to come by before he went home. Emily and Michael sat across from him, and their badges shone in the fluorescent lights of the cafe. Linda poured them each a cup of coffee and spoke in a friendly way. You all worked this out. But Caleb took a sip and smiled slightly. Getting there. Emily leaned in and spoke in a serious tone. Sergeant Marshall, can I ask you something? What's it like to guard a tomb? Caleb put down his cup and looked off into space. It's not about me. It's about the unknown soldiers who gave everything and got no name in return. Every step I take, every salute is for them. You train for 9 months, memorize 35 pages of history, and polish your uniform until it's perfect. And even then, you're never good enough. You just keep trying to be. Michael nodded, his eyes wide. That's a lot. I had no idea. Emily's voice got softer as she stared down at her coffee. I became a cop to help people, but today I didn't do that. I judged you before I knew you. Why didn't you say something? Tell us who you were. Caleb shrugged. Linda leaned on the counter and said, My badge speaks for itself. If I have to explain it, I'm not doing my job right. That's Caleb. He doesn't like to brag. I've known him for years, and I only found out he was a tombguard when I saw that badge one day. Emily smiled a little. I promise I'll do better. Caleb looked her in the eye and said this. That's all we can do. Keep learning and getting better. The next day, Captain Bennett met with Sheriff Tom Reynolds at Fort Meyer. Reynolds was 50 years old and had been on the force for 20 years. They were in a small office with the sound of military action outside. Sheriff Reynolds leaned over and said, What happened yesterday can't happen again. Sergeant Marshall is one of our best. We need your officers to understand what it means to serve. Reynolds nodded and looked serious. Bennett's voice was tough but fair. I've talked to Carter and Hayes. They know they messed up. What do you think? Your officers will come to Fort Meyer for a training program. They'll learn about the tombguard and what our soldiers do. It's not just about rules, it's also about respect. Reynolds held out his hand. Okay, Captain, it's a deal. A week later, Sheriff Reynolds spoke to his deputies in a crowded briefing room at the Willow Creek Police Station. Emily was at the front with her notebook open. Starting today, Reynolds began, we're implementing a new protocol. Every officer will attend training at Fort Meyer. You'll learn what it means to serve, to honor those who've given everything. And you'll remember that every person you stop has a story. Emily raised her hand, her voice steady. Sir, I want to say something. I made a mistake last week. I disrespected a tombguard, a man who represents the best of this country. I learned something that day, not just about procedure, but about dignity. Every stop we make, every interaction is a chance to show respect. I won't forget that. The room was quiet for a moment, and then some officers nodded and some clapped softly. Reynolds nodded in agreement. Well, Carter said. Days later, Emily drove her cruiser down a quiet road close to Arlington. She drove up to a little house with a freshly cut lawn and a Dodge Ram parked in the driveway. Caleb was outside with a cloth in his hand, washing his truck. She strolled out, her outfit neat and her sunglasses off. Sergeant Marshall, she yelled as she walked up. Caleb wiped his hands and glanced up. Officer Carter, what brings you here? Emily asked with a timid smile. Can we talk? Maybe over coffee? Caleb laughed and pointed to the home. Just made a pot. Come on in. They sat at a plain wooden table with 2 mugs of coffee between them. There was a picture of Caleb in his tombguard uniform on the wall of the small kitchen. Emily looked at it, and then back at him. Why do you do it? She said. The tombguard thing. It sounds so intense. Caleb leaned back and thought about it. It's not about me. It's about the soldiers who never came home. They don't get to tell their stories, so I walk for them. Every step and salute is their voice." Emily nodded and said softly, "I understand now. Or at least I'm trying to," Caleb said with a smile that was rare for him. "That's a good start, officer. That's a good start." Caleb stood at the tomb of the unknown soldier as the sun went down over Arlington. His outfit was perfect, and he moved with precision. He took 21 paces, turned, and saluted, with the weight of history in every move. The crowd was quiet, with their phones down, and their hearts filled. The story ended with a voice from the narrator. In a world that is quick to judge a man's quiet strength, we were all reminded that honor isn't in a uniform or a badge. It's in how we treat each other. Every person has a story. Listen before you judge.